So yeah, man, starting this thing off, just give us a little bit of why you do what you do. Why do you go online and give us the insights and the explorations of the mind that you do?
Yeah. So I think that I do it because of a very natural and organic desire to share. And I think that that's something that a lot of people experience when they start to really contact truth or start to really have some awakenings, is there's just this very organic, natural desire to just tell everybody.
Yeah.
Now, I've definitely went too far and been at the dinner table with my family and been trying to convince them and talk to them of things. But yeah, I think it's just I just have this intuition, that this pull, and when I look back, it's really something that I've felt since I was a kid, but it's only recently started to really become clear in my own mind what that pull is and what I'm actually doing. And so I don't know if you want to call that destiny. I don't know if you want to call that, you know, divine intervention or divine purpose, but it feels like that subjectively. It just feels like it's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's from that place. It's from a very profound place of love that I share what I share.
hmm So it's almost like some kind of sense of an obligation from some unworldly force.
Yeah, it feels like a responsibility. Not that I have to do it or that I should do it or that I'm being forced to do it, but that it's just so great. It's just so grand in a sense that it's like, what else is there to do with my life? Like,
Yeah.
I can't just go get a 9 to 5 and just do that. Like, and I don't know, it feels necessary. It feels like it has to happen, but not that I have to do it. So it's kind of both in a weird way.
Yeah. But you ultimately want to do it, right? Because not only are you hopefully helping others with your message, you're also helping yourself, first of all, right? By having this whole creative process in the platform. You're first of all, it's like, it's kind of cathartic for yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When people message me and they even say things like, this helps so much, or I'll get the rare message of like, you changed my life. I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is the most incredible thing I could be doing with my time. It's so fulfilling. And it's almost a spiritual practice in its own right. Like some
hmm
people ask me if I journal, and I'm like, every day I make a video, and that's sort of my journal. It's like a video journal. I'm just sharing my insights, my thoughts, and my ideas. And so it's very cathartic. It feels like there's this chi life force energy just flowing through me when I make a video, when I make a post, or when I come on a podcast like this. And it's divine for sure from my perspective.
hmm
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Just like it kind of, I mean, from a podcast standpoint, I see it almost as like a meditative experience. Like what we're literally doing right now in this moment and what I've done in previous sessions is it's very, how do I put it? Yeah, I guess meditative is the way to put it because it's like I have to be here with you right now. And if I'm not, then it's going to be a shitty podcast and no one's going to want to listen to it. And I'm not even going to want to do it if I'm not here. You know what I mean? I have to be engrossed with what you're saying and you hopefully are engrossed with what I'm saying. And then from there, we create this weird dynamic between two minds that almost create this one mind. And what I'm trying to say is that that is an exercise, just simply being able to focus on one thing, whether it's the creative journaling, video journaling that you do, or the podcast, or maybe painting a picture, or whatever it is that we do in terms of our creativity as a human being. That itself is like it's like strengthening our mental muscle, you know? So from my point of view, doing this has only made me stronger in my mental capacities in terms of like being able to simply focus and have discipline with things and in other like in other facets of my life. I'm able to like actually focus on that without getting distracted by another TikTok video or I have to go do this or do that. It's like being able to just like hone in on something. That's something special, right? And it seems like it shouldn't be, but in today's world It really is. To be able to like have an attention span, that is that's so special nowadays. So yeah, man, I'm in the same boat. Like I do this not only because, you know, I'm think I'm cool and I got a YouTube channel and whatever. No, that it's really that's secondary. For like primary is because this is really just like an exploration of myself and an exploration of myself with others that are also on the same path. And thus I also upload it on YouTube, like I said, secondary wise, but it's really not about that. And yeah, I mean, I encourage anybody else that's listening to this to try and find something like a knack like that where you can do it and it doesn't really matter if people watch or consume what you create. You know what I mean? Like find something that you can just
Yeah.
create and you get lost in whatever that creative process is. And you don't even have to put it online, even if it is just like you have your own doodle book or you have your own stories that you write or whatever it is, man. Just explore the essence of creativity because I think the essence of creativity is an essence of our innate, like just at our core. That's our like innate being a human is our creative aspect. So explore that. And then I think from there, yeah, like a sense of just like purpose, like a sense of alignment starts to arise in the being in the consciousness. At least for me, I'm speaking from personal experience, but I think other people can also attest, and you can probably attest to that. From this creative
Yeah.
process is purpose.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I couldn't agree more, and I honestly couldn't have said it better myself. Like, whenever I'm making a video, or whenever I'm sure you're making a podcast, there's like this. It feels meditative because I think that there really is a real connection happening to the truth, to the source, and that creative aspect is definitely there. But it's almost like it is a spiritual practice. Like I kind of define that broadly, but like if you're journaling or if you're painting and you just get into that meditative state and then these expressive creative ideas are coming through you, it definitely deepens. And I know for a fact that doing podcasts or talking about this stuff specifically, like that allows me personally to just deepen my understanding. I'll have insights when I'm talking to people. So it's almost like it really is like this very innate creative sort of
It's like a
desire that's just, yeah, it's like a channeling that's just coming through. And it's almost like, I don't know, man. It's beautiful though. I don't know if I can fully describe that, but it's beautiful. Whatever that is, whenever you're in that zone, making your podcast, making your video, or doodling, or even playing the guitar, doing your music, whatever that sort of artful, creative expression is to you, maybe that's even helping someone and you're like a counselor and like you make that an art form, or maybe you even make your business an art form. Like I really think that you can find that sort of creative expression in anything, and anything can become meditative. Anything can become a meeting between you and God, between you and the source.
That's good, man. I like that. Yeah, when you make your life an art form, you do have this relationship with the source and God. It's like you are a facet of that source energy and you become almost like the paintbrush to God. You know, you become you become part of the instrument of God. You play with the orchestra, like the symphony of God in a way. And that's all like that's a lot of fluffy talk it's like, it's kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of hippie talk, I guess, what I'm trying to say. So if we can simplify it, it's like why should I explore this creative process? Well, really, when you're in the creative flow, and it's kind of weird because this is very meta because we're literally doing it at this moment. So we're describing the creative flow as we're in the creative flow. Just want to note that. But when you're in the creative flow, it takes you almost out of that ego mind state of I need to be here, or I wish I wasn't here, or I wish I was this, or I wish, or I am this, or pretty much out of the moment, out of the here and now. And when you're in the creative flow, or not even creative, like if you're like, you could be like surfing on a wave or something, like when you're just so engrossed in what you like to do, pretty much, it's like find what you
Yeah.
truly like to do. And as long as it doesn't harm anybody, get involved with what you like to do and really, really get involved with that. So when you're in really involved with that, you're at that sense of oneness that, if we want to go with the hippie talk, that's if you want you're at that sense of oneness that the new age movement talks about. But it's not even the new age movement, it's what all the religions point toward, what all the belief systems that one could dive into are really getting at, that sense of like connection. You're at that when you're in your creative flow. And there's something so sweet, yeah, man, there's something so sweet about being able to just like, it's almost weird because it's like you don't exist, but you do. It's like you're taken out of the lower mind of wants, desires, just like lower vibrational energy. And then when you're in that creative flow, is just like a sense of just, you don't need anything else, because our mind needs stuff. We want stuff, and that's what causes suffering. But when you're engrossed, and it could even just be simple meditation when you're engrossed in, but when you're engrossed in the moment, and however which way that you go about it, you don't need anything. And you realize that it's so simple to be at peace and happy here. And yeah, man, I don't know what else to say about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, completely. And I loved your sort of metaphor of the paintbrush of God, and that's definitely how I experience it. And I think that that's how most people who are able to fully let go of that egoic desire to always solve stuff and fix stuff and change stuff, and this isn't right and that isn't right.
The monkey mind.
It's something. Yeah, exactly. That monkey mind is completely dissolved in the creative process. And I think that that's why I call it a spiritual practice, is because whether you're surfing or whether you're painting or doing your art through your business, whatever it is, if every cell of your being is immersed in that, you do become one. And I know that that's new agey and hippie, but it literally is this feeling of, yeah, exactly. It's just the reality of that experience is you're literally losing the limitations. And that's why I think so many creative artists and creative people are often spiritual, or are often attracted to God in some form, whatever religion or tradition it is because art has always been the expression of that unity, of that collective unified field that we are all a part of and walking around in.
Yeah, I believe that, man. Yeah, art is special. Good art. I mean, there's a lot of art that's labeled art, but is the stuff that really strikes a chord with you when you see it or you listen to it, or you watch a movie and it just like hits you right in your heart. The art of the heart. That is something special. It hits on like special archetypes in our brain. Yeah, I don't know why.
Deep.
Like, I think it's because it's like, I mean, well, let's try to dive into like, what is art, right? If you could define what is art. It's like capturing, what were you going to say something?
I would say art is a expression of truth, of unity.
Yeah. How so though? I mean, that's a broad statement. So like how is like, a Led Zeppelin song expressing truth and unity the same as the Mona Lisa expressing truth and unity? I know what you're saying, but it's like, I don't know.
I think it has something to do with the creative process of that piece of art, whether it's a song or a painting, that physical expression, whether it's audible, and I mean audible like sound waves as physical too, like in space and time. Yeah. But whether it's that or whether it's a physical painting, that literally couldn't have been manifested if that person wasn't connected to the divine.
I know what you mean.
So I think it's literally like God sending through a human mind it's like shooting through the mind, and then it's expressing itself in a Mona Lisa, in a Led Zeppelin song, in an AC/DC song, in a rap song even. But I do think that some art can be more divisive, more egoic, and maybe that would be like the hard trap, rap music about killing each other and stuff like that. And that would probably be sort of like a weird twisted form of it. But I think the more pure it is, the more it connects with you emotionally, like you were saying. I think the more that mind, that ego mind, that person, that human that created it was connected to truth. Yeah. So that's kind of my take on it just in the moment, but that you definitely could think about that for a long time and contemplate that for sure.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. And when you're just examining a good piece of art, whatever it is, it just hits you. Like you just know when something's good. There's, even though art is subjective, there is a sense of objectivity to art. It's hard to say. But there is like everyone knows. I was looking at Raphael's paintings the other day, actually, which is kind of funny. And his art just transcends time. Like this was back in the 1500s, and it was just it's just so realistic, just so vivid in the way that he painted pictures. And this was 500 years ago, back when he just used the paintbrush. He didn't have Photoshop. And it's still, to this day, 500 years later, still is better than most art that people create using modern technology. So 500 years ago, it's like timeless. I think true art transcends time and space. Like there's something when they're in that oneness, that unitary consciousness of creation, that is transcendent to whatever time that you view it in. Like there is some kind of, it's through, I don't know what it is, because I mean technically the one state, it makes sense because the unitary state is timeless. So if you're creating from that timeless state, truly, putting the vibrations of that love into your work, it's obviously going to transcend time and space, and it's not going to age or be corny 500 years later. It's only going to age like wine. Actually, it actually has only gotten better because, like the fact that he had those means, or it could be Raphael or anybody, whoever did it years ago, they had the means, and the way that they created it during that time period translates to this time period, or whenever you view it. That there's something resonant about that, like how it was created as well. Like you can feel the vibration of it just by viewing it, but then when you take in like how they created it, there's something special about that. But what I'm trying to say, man, is that what was the original thing that we were getting at? Like, what is art?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like I think it just touches upon our emotions, like you said, and it doesn't matter when it was created, who views it. It's really just like there's something unworldly about it. It's almost like a download from God, like you said, from source. And if the person is really synced up, they're linked up to that source, and they just use themselves, they surrender to whatever that is as the creator, then it will be transcendent. There's something special about it. And then we can get into the topic of AI art. What do you think about that? Do you think that is defined as art? Because there's some amazing work that can come from it. I don't know if you've ever used it.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up because I actually use it all the time. I use Midjourney. I'm not sure which AI you use, but I use Midjourney, and I use Midjourney. Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. So
also Dolly. I don't know if you heard that one.
Dolly too. Yeah. So I've used that, but I think that AI, I think because you have to use the prompts, I think a lot of traditional artists are upset about like, oh, people are making art that would have taken me like 2 years to paint or something. Yeah. But it's probably similar to how people felt when the TV was introduced and it was going to put radio out or something. Then they were like, oh, we don't want TVs. Like, you're going to put all the radio people out. But the TV opened up this whole new thing called cinema. in the movies, which has been a whole beautiful field of art. So I think that AI art has a right as an expression of people's minds, because it can randomly create things, but the AI was created by a mind, and the mind is a part of the all, the unity. So it's always an aspect of what I would call the universe or God, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it. So I think the AI art deserves its rightful place. I think people can do beautiful things with it. I myself am not perfect at it, but I've been able to create visions, spiritual sort of divine mystical visions I've had with the AI art that I never would have been able to communicate with someone else or have somebody else draw for me, or even myself draw, because I can barely draw a stick figure. So I think it's opened up this whole new world, a whole new domain of art. But I think that it's equally as beautiful if it is coming from that place of unity, of truth, and of connection. And I kind of want to tap on what you said about it being timeless.
Yeah.
Because a sunset will probably always be beautiful as long as humans are around. And sunsets are completely timeless. So I think that if it's what I would consider an aspect or a facet of truth or the divine, be it beauty, love, wisdom, truth, clarity, whatever that facet of the art is hitting on, it will be timeless, because where it came from, like you were saying, is literally outside of time. Yeah. And so that's why no matter who's looking at it and no matter what time period, whether it's, Raphael's paintings from 600 years ago, or it's people looking at AI art in 1,000 years, if it expresses and literally came from one of those facets of truth, it'll resonate, because we all are truth. And there's a sort of recognition, there's a connection that like, oh, that's me. I mean, it's not framed that way, but there's that innate hit on your emotional system where you're like, that's truth. That's beauty. That's love. And that's completely transcendent of time. So yeah.
I get it. It's all about where it comes from, the intention behind it, whether it's AI creating it or literally Raphael from the Renaissance. It's all about where it came from. Like where did it start in a way? What energy was it created with? Because I mean, when AI art, you could say AI creates it, but it's really about the person that does the prompt. So the prompt is the most important thing with AI art. So it's almost like the art form in terms of the human creation has evolved into not so much the actual creation of the image, but the creation of, all right, what am I going to create here? It's like the origin point. Because I mean, Raphael says that too. He said, what am I going to create here? And then he creates it. But it's like now with AI art, we don't actually have to do the creation, but we still have the point of like, well, where's this coming from? What's the inspiration behind it? And I guess if you have a good programming with the AI art, which it is, it's phenomenal. If you have a good structure behind it, your intention behind it will also reflect. So it's all about where it comes from, man. All of our creation, where does it come from? And what are you creating for? And if getting back to it, man, full circle here. If you're creating for God, if you're creating for source, if you're creating for love, then you're on the right path, in my opinion. Like that's what a human is supposed to do. And even though there is no supposed to and not supposed to, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but in my personal opinion, I do think that humans have some kind of innate reason or purpose for existing, for this phenomena of life going on right now. And that's to be a creator in whatever way that we were put here for. It's to create. Yeah, man. But if you got to make sure you're creating, because we have free will. So it's like, you got to make sure you're creating out of goodness, out of wholeness, out of purity, out of love. Because you can also create with black magic and get into some darker aspects of humanity as well. So it's all about where it comes from, man. It's all about where it comes from.
Yeah, man. And I think that we definitely can expand that up way past art into our complete everyday lives. We're creating our thoughts. We're creating our feelings. We're creating our behaviors, how we act around people. And I definitely agree with you. I just got done reading with the Conversations with God trilogy. I don't know if you've read those books.
Who was that by?
Neil Donald Walsh. He wrote them in like the 80s and 90s, and then he wrote a fourth one in 2016. But they're they're amazing. I always recommend them to people. But he basically has a dialogue with God. He said he wakes up in the night, or he woke up in the night one night, and God just like came to him, and his hands started writing.
Oh,
And
yeah,
whether you
I've heard that.
believe,
Hmm.
yeah, whether you believe he was actually talking to God or not is up to you. But if you read those books, they'll blow your mind, because he says basically exactly what you were saying, which is that you have free will as a sentient being, and you're here to create who you truly are and who you want to be. And it's all about choice. It's all about where that's coming from with your art, with your behaviors, with your speech, with your action. And it's obvious that when it comes from a place of truth, which I would call unity, when it comes from a place of love, everything is 10 times better. When you create thoughts and words and actions from a place of division, from a place of separation, from anger, from jealousy and pettiness, your life goes to hell, literally.
Yeah, man.
And so I think there's a very profound thing that we can extrapolate from our whole conversation with art, which is that no matter what you're doing, if you can just stay aware of where it's coming from, and no one's perfect. I mean, I have my moments. I saw these egoic things that pop
all
up
human.
here and there, and I'll say something and I'll do this, but it's become more clear to me in the past year or so that like your life, how you feel, and everyone around you is completely affected by everything you do, even your thoughts, because your thoughts change your mood. And then if you're in a bad mood, it like makes everyone else in a bad mood. So it's like, that's really the heart of spirituality or awakening or whatever you want to call it, investigation into the self, philosophy, whatever, where it's coming from, the sort of emanation of that original desire is so important. And that could almost be a practice in your day-to-day life, is to just, what's my intention for this? Did that come from a sort of egoic place, or did that come from a place of love? Oh, I saw how when it came from a place of love, that lady at the gas station, she smiled, and that probably changed her whole day. And when it came from a place of ego, that guy got all angry, and like that probably ruined his day. So it could be a practice for those of you listening.
I think that is the practice. That's the core practice, man. It's being able to reflect upon our actions here, and then from there, change your actions if you want. Like you said, we have free will. But ideally, once you're able to have that power of reflection, that you're most likely going to want to change your actions, because then you realize that your actions reflect they reflect upon your whole life. So yeah, man, I think that's spirituality 101 right there. It's knowing your innate power that you have every single moment of your life. You have the ability to dictate how you act. And like you said, it doesn't mean you're going to become perfect overnight, but it means that the journey to perfection is there. Even though you know you're not going to become perfect, like the journey to pureness, to that like almost sainthood is there. And that's the path I see it as. Like, we're here to embody that love day by day. You know, it's not an overnight, Rome wasn't built in a day type thing. But on the journey is like, how do I put it? There's no other path to take. Like, once you can find that power within, right? I don't see any other way to live. Like, you can get off your rocker here and there, get sucked into egotistical thinking. But ultimately, and you can probably attest to this as well, I always know where to tap into that. Like, I always know if I'm misaligned, and I can always check myself if I mess up or make a mistake that's not pure, quote unquote, or not aligned to God or whatever it is. I always know when something wasn't right. And that, to me, man, is why I'm always curious to speak to people, because that's the switch. Like, that's the change to go on to the path, is when you can discern and when you can discriminate your actions here, when you can discriminate upon what actions you take here and know how to go forward from any actions of the past, like pretty much a reorientation and a changing of your of how your humanly vessel acts, not only toward yourself but also to the whole world. As above, so below. It's just a whole reflection. But yeah, on that note, how did you get to this point? Like, where did this being able to tap into the source energy and reorient yourself into a more loving spirit, where did that come from? Was there something that happened in your life? Yeah, where did this come from?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you just said. And I would say that it definitely, for me, looking back, has always been an intuition. I didn't know at the time, but I remember moments as a kid where I was like, yeah, that felt right. Like that just felt right to do that, to open that door, and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I would say like 6 years ago, when I was in high school as a teenager, I started reading about like mindfulness and Zen, and then Zen led me to Buddhism, and Buddhism led me to like Neo Advaita and all of the other different sort of paths. And so at that same time too, I started doing experimenting with psychedelics, and as
Very
Ram
nice.
Dass would say, as Ram Dass would say, mushrooms are my friend. And I think that that's really what blew the door open for me, was
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily one thing or the other, be it the reading or the psychedelics, but that I had sort of a intellectual understanding of like kind of what was going on. I didn't really know what was going on, but I just had intuition. And then the psychedelic experiences basically validated that in my direct experience, that like, oh yeah, these guys aren't full of it when they're talking about God being love. They're not full of it when they're talking about unity and oneness. It's not some story. That's what it actually is. So I think it was once I started experimenting with psychedelics, and then I started to really get into it and like go to like online retreats, and then I started to meditate heavily. It's sort of there wasn't a specific moment, but it just has become so clear recently within the past few years that like, oh yeah, that's definitely what's going on. Like how you're living and the choices you make are literally rippling out. And I think it's funny when people say that you shouldn't care what other people think, because I do agree you shouldn't be controlled by other people's perception. But if everyone is telling you that you're an asshole, that might be worth listening to. Like there's probably something there, and you just start to observe, like you were saying, and discern. And I think that sort of just, and I know for some people it's been a huge shift, a huge like massive thing that happened. But I think for a lot of people it's just this sort of gradual process where you just get better at it. It's just like going to the gym. You go to the gym and you can't bench press 500 pounds off the bat. You start small and then you get better at it, and you know what to do, and you know how much weight to put on. And I think it's the same for your quote unquote spiritual muscle, your discernment, where you don't really know at first. You can't really tell when you're acting from ego or when you're acting from a unified spot. And then it just gets clearer and clearer, polishing the mirror, as Ram Dass would say. It just gets cleaner and cleaner and clearer. And I think that if anything, psychedelics can show you what a completely clear mirror will look like for a few hours, and then you'll have something to work towards. And that's why I advocate for psychedelics in a safe and responsible way, is because they're one of, if not the best tool for showing you what's possible with this work.
Yeah, man. If anybody has any doubt to what we're talking about right now, try some mushrooms. In a responsible way.
Yeah. That's what I say to people when they comment and say, "Oh, you're full of it." I say, "Go do 10 3-gram psilocybin mushroom trips, and then come back and see if you say that again. Just go do 10 trips and come back."
Seriously.
And I guarantee you'll look at it differently.
Yeah, man. Same with me. I was kind of on the path, getting to it, meditating, just on that path of reorientation, kind of re-examining myself and how I act, like you said. Then I took mushrooms. And I realized like, oh shit, yo, love actually is the truth. There's no other way to put it, man. Just like when you're in that headspace, there's no other truth. Like that's it. When you take enough and you're in the right environment, there it's just clear. It's evident that yes, all you need is love. It's so it seems it seems just like not true when you're not in that headspace. Even now thinking about it, right? It doesn't make any sense. You can't think about it. There's no rationale. There's no mathematical proof that you could do to everything is love. But when you feel it, you know. And that's really what you have to do, man, is just have that direct experience. Some may say of God, because I think God is love. So when you have that direct experience of God, I there's nothing stronger. Like I'd like to say that when I took the high dose of mushrooms, that was the most profound experience that I've ever had in my life. And I'm relatively young, so maybe I'm gonna have some more crazy experiences. But so far, that was the most impactful experience that I've ever had. And literally from an outside point of view, I was in my bed in the dark. That's it. There was nothing happening other than the chemical induction that was in my mind. And from there, I think it changed up my life forever. And a lot of other people can attest to that, man. So shout out psilocybin. Psilocybin is also my friend.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's kind of sad when people do get a taste of the divine or God of love. And I completely agree. God is love. God isn't a bearded man in the clouds judging you. But I think it's sad when they get a taste of that in psychedelics, and then they come out of it and then they convince themselves that, oh, that was just a hallucination. That wasn't real, even though it's like, no, you were just shown something very, very profound. And the only gatekeeper is your own mind, which, of course, if you were raised in a very, atheist family or even a very traditional religious family, your mind is going to come back and try to dismiss it and deny it, even though you had the most profound direct encounter with absolute truth. And there's absolutely no way in that state of mind, like you were saying, that you can deny it, even though you can't create a double blind placebo study to prove that love is everything. You just know it to be true. And every mystic and sage and saint has been saying that for thousands of years. And if you look at that, and then you look at your direct experience, and then you look at all the books and what everyone is talking about, what they're teaching, you go, yeah, this isn't nothing. This isn't just some new age hippy dippy thing that's like soft and cute. It's like, no, it literally is love. We're literally love in meat suits, and the meat suit is love too.
Yeah.
And so is your room.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of it.
It's hard to explain, but it's very beautiful. Like once you can grasp that, you can always come back to that. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to do, to know that amidst the darkness of this world, amidst the chaos and confusion that we're sold every day, it's all a fallacy. It's all Maya, as they say. And it truly is Maya. And the mystics, yeah, they did realize this thousands of years ago, with or without mushrooms. You don't have to do mushrooms. I'm not saying you have to. I don't think people have to do mushrooms, actually. It's just that they're efficient. They're very useful in what they do. So shout out psilocybin, but you don't have to. The truth of love is always there, and it always will be there. And it always has been there. But Maya blinds us. It puts up our facade to disconnect us from that truth. But it's always there, man. It's always there for all of us. And then once you get the message, whether it's from psilocybin or whatever it is, I don't know, man. I can't just delete that from my voicemail. It's always in there. It's always in there. There's no way that I can look back. And even if it was a so-called hallucination, and it was just my mind playing tricks on me, well, it was still like the message that I got from that hallucination, if that makes sense. It's not even about like that 4 to 6 hours that I was in that ecstatic experience of just ecstasy and just merging with this divine force of love that I found out that I was and was hiding from the whole time. It wasn't even about that 4 to 6 hour experience. It's about like, what did that show me? And I think what it showed me is that I can always resonate at that 4 to 6 hour experience. And I seem to, ever since that day, I don't think, ever since that day, it's like I don't see any higher goal. Like, not that I'm trying to strive for that, because I feel like the more you strive to be holy or pure, it's like kind of counterintuitive. We can kind of get into that a little bit later, but it's like, it's that reorientation to that. Like there isn't anything to do here, but there kind of is. There's a way to act as a human being, and it's just on the essence of love. So like from that message, man, I don't see any other way. Like there's no, I don't know. I don't think there could be any other way. Maybe, and there's no, like in that experience, it didn't seem like an illusion. Like there was something so true about that. There was something just like, like I can't explain it. Like we said, man, it goes beyond rationale. It goes beyond any kind of formulation of the mind. But it's forever ingrained in my soul. Shout out psilocybin.
Yeah. Shout out psilocybin. And I know that a lot of modern day, and even I'm sure more historical like teachers and stuff have had critiques of psychedelics being actual way to experience truth or awakening or enlightenment. And I would disagree, because the sort of critique there is that, it doesn't last. And I would agree that the sort of profound, mind-blowing sort of clarity doesn't last. But every single time that I have entered that space that you can't really explain until you're there, that pure clarity of that truth, that love is basically your purpose and the purpose for the entire physical universe, that every time I come back into my daily life, there's a little kernel that's brought back. It's not super clear. Again, it's like that the mirror is completely polished in that headspace, but then it kind of gets dirtied again, but it's a little bit more clean than when I went in. And like the more I've done psilocybin, the more that's clear, that it's like, it may not be permanent in that ecstatic sense, but there's a little kernel that's brought back. Just like you said, you can't unsee it, and you really can't, because once you see it, it's like, oh yeah. And then I think that for people who are wondering, maybe like, are you sure that you can access it without psilocybin or psychedelics? I would say yes, because even though for me personally, psilocybin opened that door to love and truth, I've had moments completely sober, be it meditating or going on a walk, where it's crept in, and I've started to go back into that headspace completely sober. And so it's entirely possible. And I think that, kind of like you were saying, it's a beautiful tool. Shout out psilocybin. It's like, if you're trying to go to the other side of the country, you can walk there, or you can take a plane. And I think taking the plane is quick and easy, but you can also abuse it too, which I've seen before. So you got to be careful.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah. Truth is truth, whether you access it through meditation or through looking at a sunset or through a psychedelic. Truth is truth, because it's absolute. It literally is what it is true. Apart from your relative human truths about which president we should elect.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are always differ. But I think if there's one thing that I can know for sure, because there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and I would say I probably don't know everything, but there is one thing I know, and that is love.
That's all there is to know, man.
And I think that's why all the beings that have embodied and modeled that, be it Jesus Christ, be it the Buddha, be it Gandhi, be it Martin Luther King Jr., anyone that's embodying love, there's a power, there's a truth to it. And I think that's why most of them were killed or attacked, is because from an egoic, fearful place, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so powerful. It's so solid. Not that you're trying to be loved so people are afraid of you. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But I think that's why they were so feared, is because love is so true. And deep down, every incarnation knows that truth.
Yeah, man. The capital T truth. It's pretty simple. It's like it's all of us. It is the truth. It's pretty simple. We overcomplicate it, but it's really just resonated love. It's different for everybody and it's circumstantial, but just explaining it very simply, one sentence, it's love is the truth. That's it. That's all you got to know.
Yeah.
Like you said, everything else is below that when it comes to politics and the truths of your life, the relative truths. That's all below the capital T truth. Everything is encompassed in the sphere of love, really. It's really just a whole game of love. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Is there a force against love? That's the thing. It seems to be, like you said, the great people that have been embodying their love throughout the ages seem to be taken out. And that's if you want to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole. But in my mind, if there is a benevolent force of love, almost seems like there's got to be the malevolent force of fear, of chaos, almost for balance at this point. It seems like that's a thing, right? Which is like, if you want to get into the Illuminati and reptilian talk, we can. But yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, I don't know about reptiles or the Illuminati, but I think that in this realm of space and time and duality, there has to be that spectrum. And one thing, again, from Conversations with God, not to quote that as my Bible, but at this point it kind of is. God explains to Neil Donald Walsh that the spectrum is there so that you can choose, because if there wasn't a spectrum, you wouldn't be able to choose. And love, it wouldn't be as powerful as it is if there wasn't a choice. Now, would I say that love is, in a capital L sense, is transcendent of sort of the lowercase love and the lowercase evil? I would say yes. I would say that the evil is, or the sort of negativity is almost like a twisted form of absolute love. It's coming from an illusion, from a wrong perception, but it's still being contained by the infinite that is love. So I think that there's probably some distinctions you could make there in your mind, but I definitely think it's necessary in this realm, in space and time, to have a spectrum, so that you can know who you want to be, what you want to create, again, with your art, with your actions, with your behaviors, and to know as a species too, as a collective, where humanity wants to move. You know, it's probably not inherently evil that someone dies of starvation, just like it's not any more evil that a lion kills a baby gazelle and rips its throat out. But we can look at that as a species and choose to not let other people in our species not starve to death. And in fact, I think it's ridiculous that there's people starving at all with our modern technology. But that's a completely different topic. So I think that there's a spectrum. I think it has to be that way.
Yeah.
For choice, for freedom. Because if it wasn't actually free, if there wasn't a choice, there wouldn't be a spectrum. It would just be one unidimensional thing, and you wouldn't be able to choose.
Yeah. And that's what makes it special in a way, because if we couldn't choose, then we wouldn't have free will, essentially. And us having free will, being bestowed free will from this creator, this source, that's one of the most loving things that I can imagine. If there is a God, he created us out of love for us to be able to decide our own destiny. And if we had to be aligned with love, I know this sounds crazy, but let's explore this idea. If we had to be aligned with love and we had no other choice from the creator, then did the creator really love us? Because it's not giving us freedom. So true freedom, yes, is being able to really mess things up, being able to choose the dark or the light side. And that is really getting to the juice of love. It's not all kumbaya, holding hands around a campfire. It really does come down to, yeah, we live in a world of contrast, of polarity. And that is love. The darkness, all of the darkness is love. But it's like, what are you going to choose from that point? Knowing that there is the darkness. Are you going to choose the light over the darkness? And then from there, yeah, then it just becomes an embodiment. And then you'd be able to, like, you can choose on a day-to-day basis. But that's really what it's all about. I like that, man. The choosing, because then it wouldn't be so special. If you couldn't choose love, it wouldn't be such a magnificent force and a magnificent embodiment. It wouldn't be such like a dawning, like when we're in the psilocybin experiences. It wouldn't be just like this, oh, I can choose to be this. Like that's, I think, in a way, freedom. It's weird because it's like, how do I explain this, man? Like we have free will, but with my free will, I'm going to choose to embody love. And that right there is such a magnificent dawning. It's such a magnificent revelation for me to know that I always have the option to choose love. And I wouldn't want to choose it any other way. That's like the true, I don't know how else to explain it, but that's freedom. To be able to know that I can do that, and to know that I can also go into the darkness as well, is also a sense of peace there. But I won't. Well, I'll try not to, at least. I'll try to embody the pure being. There's something about that brings me a sense of peace. That we have the choice. But I'm not going to. I'm still going to surrender. Like I'm going to use my choosing to surrender to that greater force that gave me the choice. Yeah, it's like, it's weird, but it makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think we're definitely sort of approaching the limits of our mind's understanding of this, because that's what I sense when I think about the polarity, but then the polarity is within the absolute love. But I think you're absolutely right that freedom of choice is literally love. It's just like with a partner you love. If you force them to stay with you, you wouldn't love them. And that's what makes it so beautiful, is that they choose you every day. They choose you out of their free will to choose anyone else to be with you. And that's why it's so powerful, is because it is a choice. It isn't forced on you. And if you do go into the dark, if you do punch a hole in your wall out of anger, you're still held by the infinite love that is what I would call God, or the source, and you're still loved anyway. And that's why it's just so beautiful. I mean, when you start to tap into it, you really just get speechless, because you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm loved no matter what. I'm love no matter what, but I can choose to embody love in a sort of finite dualistic form as well. And like that, I think that becomes a natural inclination. And it's also why it's so powerful, is because almost nobody does it. And that's why people who actually do embody it, be it, Jesus or Gandhi or the Buddha or Martin Luther King Jr., that's why it's so powerful, is because it's like, oh my gosh, they chose love when, all of their conditioning and all of society has been on the other side of the spectrum, being angry at each other and divisive. And yeah, I think that's what's so beautiful about this experience, is it's complete freedom.
Yeah, man. Well said. And all of those masters that you listed, their lives are examples for us. Especially Jesus. He was like the number one example of especially with the imagery of the cross. The sacrifice that he put forth was a sacrifice for his message. And it was a message for all of us, for the Christ within all of us, but not even just Jesus. All of those masters that you mentioned are embodiments of love, but they're ultimately trying to show us that we all can embody that truly. And I think that's what we're supposed to do here, man. We're supposed to wake up to that. We're supposed to all embody that love. Use them as a message. Don't like bow down to no false idols. That's what we're man. Like. That's being human, man. Is like in whatever way you go about it. Your legacy is like to show others the way as well. And I think that's the path, man. And can you imagine a world like that? A whole world that's like literally on the wavelength of Martin Luther King or Jesus or Gandhi or Yogananda or whoever it is, man. That's what they're all getting at. That's what they wanted. And that's the funny thing too. Like once you get on this wavelength, it's like you want it for other people, but there's nothing else that you can do other than embody it yourself. And that's the most powerful thing you can do. Like you said, truly, people can feel it and they see it through your work when it's real. But it's not like you can just say it. Like if I were to have a microphone to everybody in the entire world and say, hey man, it's all about love, you gotta smarten up. It wouldn't work. It's not that easy. It's like literally we all have to change. We all have to become the change to embody that in our own way. But I think it's possible. I know
Yeah.
we said there's a place for the darkness, but like maybe not always. Maybe like we just need the darkness now to learn, to wise up. But maybe in the future there won't be the darkness. I don't know. I don't know. I go back and forth
Yeah.
on that. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I would say that if evolution is evolving towards anything, it would be towards that truth of unity. And that makes sense to me. I can't say I know that for sure, but I don't know what else we would be evolving towards other
Right?
than that embodiment and expression of love, which is truth, which is God, which is unity, which is beauty, which is freedom. They're all words for the same essence, the same thing. And at our deepest core, we all intuit that, and we all know that because when we look at people, again, like Jesus, and we look at his story, the cross, and like what he said, forgive them for they know not what they do. Like he was in complete love when they were pinning him to the cross. He loved them completely. It's so powerful because deep down in all of us, we know that like that's it. Like that's the end of the road. That's home. Love is home. And I remember saying that on my psilocybin trips, basking in love. I'm home. The search is over. The seeking's over. The suffering's over. I'm home in love. I'm home in love.
Home in love. We all are. We actually all are. We just like shield it. There's a side of us that shields that for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's so simple.
That ego.
We always were. Yeah. The ego, man, for sure. Just playing the game. For what reason? Why? How? Where it came from? I don't quite know. I don't know. But it's always here, man. Yeah, man. I don't know what else to say.
I don't either, man. That's what love does. Anytime I tune into it, my mind just goes quiet. It just
because it has to.
It's just like, oh yeah, home.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. That's where we're evolving toward because, I don't know if there's always a place for the darkness. There might be now because that's how we learn to be in love. But once we're all in love, there's no place for the darkness. It's kind of like saying, like when we were just a unicellular organism. Like there's still unicellular organisms within us, billions, if not trillions, right? But then we evolved, like life evolved itself into become a human being. And it's not saying, it's like we're like another level. So maybe the other level of us, of consciousness itself, the next step in evolution is getting beyond the pettiness, getting beyond the mind, this ego state that was actually probably once needed at one point. We needed it for survival in the tribalistic times, where we had to actually be competitive in a way. But I think we're not always going to need that darkness. I think we need it now to wise up in a way. But I think in the future, we're really not going to, because like you said, it's the truth. It's the capital T truth. So how can you can't hide from the truth, man. You really can't hide from the truth anymore. So it's like, we're going to have to. And I think just, the creator, whatever it is, our environment is going to wake us up to that. Where like, there's going to be no other way. It's either you monkeys wake up to the truth or you're going to keep suffering. And I think that's really what it is. We're going to keep suffering. If we don't wake up to really embody this as a species, not only just ourselves, but truly embody this and change our whole world, which I don't even know what the world would look like. It'd be completely unrecognizable from what it is now. But if we don't change, we're just going to keep being on the hamster wheel of suffering. If we don't evolve, it's just going to keep going and going and going. So the darkness will always be there, I believe. It will always be there, but it will always be there as a lesson. And if we don't learn the lesson, that's when it will always be there. But I think if we learn the lesson, then I don't think we're going to need the darkness per se, because a lot of the yogis say we need the darkness. We need Prakriti to reach Purusha. We need that in order to wake up, to wise up. But what if we're all already wised up? then we're not going to need it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
No,
We'll see.
I agree. I agree with you. I think that intuitively when, and people will comment this, they'll say, well, like, because I'll talk about, being blissful, being joyful, and living a happy life. I'll talk about that a lot in my videos. And people will comment and say, well, what about the darkness? Doesn't there have to be darkness? And I'm like, not necessarily. You don't have to feel negative. You don't have to suffer. Like, you don't have to be in a bad mood. It's just there as a teacher. Like I always say, suffering is a teacher. It's pointing you back to yourself. Whenever you're suffering emotionally, not physical pain, mental, emotional suffering, whenever you're experiencing that, it's literally like the mechanism that source uses to point itself back to itself. It's like, oh, you're suffering, wake up, like knock, 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 knock. And so I think that it's not needed at the point that it's fully embodied. And then, I don't know what that would look like. Maybe obviously it would start with yourself, and then it would probably spread. And then maybe if all of humanity was able to do that, humanity wouldn't need darkness, but maybe there would be other civilizations that were still in the darkness, that then the love would spread there, and maybe we would help them or something. So I think that's what it's evolving towards, if anything. If this life is for anything, it's for that evolution towards love. And that goes full circle to what we were talking about earlier, about your actions, about your behaviors, where it's coming from is a part of that evolutionary process. Every time you choose love in your speech, love in your actions, you're taking a step forward and being a leader on the cutting edge of evolution for humanity, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it.
I see that the same way, man. You're almost like a revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. It's like the one became the many of the egos, and now we're morphing back into the one through love. It's like one
Coming
became
back
dual.
home.
Yep, exactly. That's why it feels like home, because like literally we're going back from where we came from. And it's not like a physical, we're going into another realm, like a wormhole is going to open and we get sucked in. It's like that, the vibration of that. That's where we're residing as, like we're vibrating at that same feeling of home, of love. And that's where we're going. That's the next stage of evolution. It's that the non-dual sense became the dual as a human being, a separate human being, seemingly separate. But now we're waking up to like, how can we be separate and unified at the same time? And that's through an embodiment of love. That's true non-duality as a human phenomena. It's that I recognize that I'm in my body, you're in your body, the listener's in their body. But when we all resonate at that love of that vibration of home, then that's the true non-dual dance. And that's the next stage of evolution. From where we go from there, what kind of civilization we build, who knows? I don't think I have any right to try to even describe it, but I know from a humanly standpoint, it's actually quite simple to convey, and that's just be a loving spirit, and then that's the next step in our evolution of consciousness as a whole. Yeah, man. Yeah,
and I think intuitively that's, you don't even need to understand, like, you don't need to understand with your mind spiritual non-duality and how all the niggly details of everything. Like if you just have an intuition of love, then that's what's important. You don't have to get it perfect. And I see a lot of like people having like spiritual debates about like, oh no, it's not this, it's this, and it's not this, it's this, and it's like we're still making the same mistakes in spiritual circles that people are making just in like their business office, arguing with each other. It's like when everyone recognizes the unity on a very, very profound, deep level, there won't be arguing, even though there may be different perspectives or someone may see it differently. I see that as part of the beauty of everyone that has ever communicated truth, is that it's always unique to them. The truth is always filtered through their mind in some unique way. And there's something beautiful about that. That's not something you need to attack and go, no, you're wrong. you just referred to you as a separate self. You're still in an illusion that you're an ego. And it's like, no, I don't think it's that. I think we just see things differently. And there's a beauty in that. And the true heart is that unity, is that love. And I think that that's the basic intuition. You don't need to understand all this stuff. You don't need to figure it all out. Like, love really is so simple. It really is so simple. It's deceivingly simple, like deceivingly simple.
Yep. Hidden in plain sight. I say it all the time. It seems too good to be true, but it is true.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's really just, I mean, if we can extrapolate a little bit on it, even though we already did, but like if somebody was asking us, right, they were like, all right, man, well, what does that even mean? What the hell are you guys even talking about? It's really understanding love is understanding that the other person, in whatever circumstance you're in, whatever it is, we're all in different circumstances, but we're all here together. And whatever event that you're in with somebody, see if you can look in their eyes and recognize that they have an essence of you. You two are one in this moment, or you three, whatever the amount of people is. Another human being is you. And that's true love. If you can really recognize and resonate that at the vibration that this person there's no separation, even though it seems like we're so different and he looks different than me and they just speak differently or they smell differently or they just have a total different act. That's what it is. It's all an act. And see if you can see behind the scenes of the act and within the person, look into their heart. Well, look into your heart to see if you can find out that similar aspect in that person or whatever event that's happening or whatever circumstance it is. Because love is circumstantial, I believe. It's ever evolving and circumstantial in all of our lives. So when whatever comes up, it's almost like a test. How can you see through your own egotistical tendencies in that moment and feel that other person is truly a part of you and is you really deep down? And then act from there. That's how I would explain love simply to somebody. Is just see somebody as yourself, right? That's 101, right? It's to love thy neighbor. And it's that simple. Yeah. It really is. Just seeing yourself in the other person's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree, man. You explained that beautifully. And I think for anyone listening that's like really confused, just notice that there's something holding both you and that other person. You're both existing in the same thing somehow. You don't know what you don't really know what it is. You may call it the earth, you may call it the universe, you may call it the moment, however you frame it to yourself, but there's something literally holding you two together that you can even look at each other and communicate is the most incredible thing. There's some connection. And I would say that connection is love, is just that simple, very pure, unifying aspect of all of our lives, even though they may smell different or look different or be in a different spot in space and time. There's still a connection, and that connection is love.
Amen, man.
Unity.
Yeah, man. It's all, our separation
Absolutely.
Is all an illusion. It really is. There's still the play going on. Just because it's an illusion doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I think that's what a lot of people get mixed up with. Like, it's the illusion is still present, but it's like, can you see through the illusion? Can you still play the role? Can you still play the part here as the seemingly separate self and embody as the separate self that essence of love? And then thus the play changes a little bit. The play there's more flow in it, I guess one could say. But yeah, that's it. That's putting it pretty simply. It's simple. It's simple, but it's like, it's not quite easy per se. We're going to be tested every day. I feel like I'm tested every day. Just when I think I'm this loving saint, something comes up and then some person says something, a little derogatory toward me or something, whatever, just stuff happens in our life where we get tested. Yeah. And, you might get sucked out of that love and essence. But I think if you can remember that life is somewhat of a test, some people say it's like a playground, and other people that I've talked to are like that. It's like a game, whatever it is. You have to have your wits about you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You have to kind of be able to remain present and mindful in whatever moment happens, especially as a layperson. Be able to like have that split second discernment in the moment, that split second reaction where you're actually not, it's not like a split second reaction. It's like there is a split second conscious reaction, I guess. It's more, it's like less so of just like an animalistic reactionary behavior. It's like
The choice.
a choice. Yeah, exactly. You have like a choice in the matter of how you act. If you can,
Yep.
if you can resonate at that, then yeah, thus you can resonate at love. But that's why it's important to have, I believe, in my personal view, I'm not saying anybody else needs to, but that's why it's important to meditate and have those practices like that in your life. So it strengthens your mental muscles so that when you go out into the craziness and the chaos of the world,
Yep.
you can stay aligned into the heart space no matter what happens. And yeah.
Yep. Yeah, man, completely agree. I don't think I could have said it better myself. And I like to, on your point about the playground, I do like to look at it as a sort of for fun, for play, but it's almost like a game where you're playing to learn something. So it's like it's for fun, but there is something to learn in the fun. So it's kind of like both, sort of the middle way, as the Buddha would say. And I think that if anyone listening, if you can, however you want to look at your life, whether it's a playground for complete fun or whether there are serious lessons to learn here, I think that if you can start to see that unity, be it with the consciousness that's looking through the other person at the cashier that's looking at you, or be it your dog, when your dog's looking at you, that consciousness looking back at you, or even yourself in a mirror, if you can just see that unity, and then connect all those and go, wait, that thing, whatever that thing was that was looking at me in my dog's body, was the same thing that was looking at me in my mom's body, and it's the same thing that's looking at me in the mirror, then you can kind of put it together and start to see that the same love is looking through everyone's eyes, and then connect it in whatever way you can. But that's just kind of how I like to do it.
Yep, man.
So
connect the dots of love. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Honestly, I think we could probably wrap it up at that. I don't really have anything else to say. We dove into it enough. We said the buzzword of today's episode is definitely love with a capital L.
Love.
That's for sure.
Absolutely. I think it's the best thing to end on, because there's nothing more important,
honestly,
in my eyes.
Well, do you have any last words for the people? Anything you want to get off your chest?
Love is home, and you are love. And the more you can move towards that, the more you're evolving. And again, to take it full circle to what we were talking about, whether it's in your business, you turn that into an art form of love, whether it's in your painting, you turn that into an art form of love. I think in whatever way and whenever you can connect and express that love, the more you will evolve, and the more that you'll help move humanity forward towards home, towards love.
Yeah. And ultimately, the more it'll take you to a sense of peace and happiness, because that's what we all want. We all want deep down to enjoy this experience. So summing it all up, why we resonate at love is because there's no other way to be happy. You can try and chase it in a Maserati or good food or just hedonism in general, right? But really, when it comes down to it, those are all fleeting experiences. But love, this love that we're talking about here, this capital L love, the truth, capital T truth, that is permanent. That is forever. That is infinite. So if you can embody that, you can touch upon that sense of infinity. And essentially, that's how you be a little bit happier. I don't even know if happy is the right word, but peace, bliss, you'll find a little bit of flow in your life. At least for me, I'm speaking from personal experience. So you got to find that within yourself. But once you do, you never let it go, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Well, on that note, I thank you for your time, wisdom. This was awesome. This was a great talk. Definitely would like to do this again. Talk about love some more. I don't know what more we can talk about, but hey, you can't say it enough. You can't say it enough. It's the truth, man. But yeah, thanks again.
Yeah.
thanks for anybody that listened this long, and I wish you all the best. Keep doing your thing.
Yeah. Yep. And thank you too, Gary. Thank you guys, everyone, for listening. And love is home. Remember that.
Love is home. Peace.
Peace.